Caroline Nokes MP for Romsey and Southampton North, thank you so much for joining us. You're also Chair of the Women's Equality Select Committee. Really appreciate you being here to speak about the Ask Her to Stand Day this month. I want to know, as the Chair of the Women's Equality Select Committee, how did you first hear about 50-50 Parliament?
God, I think the first time I heard about the 50-50 Parliament was actually an invitation to an event which was basically doing what it says on the tin. It was for women who were at the start of a political journey, and I was asked to go along and speak about my journey into Parliament, why I thought it mattered that we have more women in Parliament. I think also the changes that I've seen, and I always tell people this, look, it's a lot better now than it was in 2010 when I arrived, and yet 2010 had been a big watershed election when we'd had more women elected, but it remains a challenge, but an important one. It remains one where I look around and see when you have women involved in decision making, guess what, you get better decisions.
Excellent, thank you so much for saying that, and I think that's very pertinent at the moment as well. Can you tell us why you think initiatives like the Ask Her to Stand Day are important?
What matters is that we inspire women to not think that they can do it, to know that they can do it. Yeah. You have to lead by example. You have to tell would-be parliamentarians, people who might never have thought about it, look, this is a great job. It's one of the best jobs in the world. It's really varied. It's interesting. You can make a difference to people's lives, and to convey the message that actually if we want to have issues that resonate with women debated in Parliament, if we want to bring about change that makes women's lives better, you have to have women there. You have to have more women there. And I always take that view, is that when you go into somewhere like Westminster Hall, when you go into select committees and see the number of women that are working collaboratively on a cross-party basis, who egos have gone out the window. It's about where do we want to get to? What is the change that we want to effect? And I always say, if you want to see some of the best working of Parliament, look at some of the cross-party work. Things like the domestic abuse bill, where we had Harriet Harman, the mother of the House, and Laura Farris, who was a brand new MP from the opposite side of the House, working together to get an amendment through on the so-called rough sex defence. And that to me was a real example of how women will suddenly go, you know what, if we do this across party, if we use the very, very new, with zero experience, a lot of experience in the practical world and as a lawyer, but Harriet, who'd been there forever, and you suddenly got this range of opinion and experience working together in a common goal. You know, that's what we can do.
That's so inspiring. It's so reassuring to hear that you can actually make a difference and that working together is integral to that. I think also things like the upskirting bill, would that have happened without women MPs being in place?
Would we have had a domestic abuse bill without there being a critical mass of women? Would we have seen Greg Clark's private member's bill on sex-based harassment make it through to being an act if we hadn't had some really determined women in Parliament who were absolutely hell-bent on driving that forward and making sure that we get change that I hope will bring about a societal, cultural change. And you know, and people forget that. We don't sit in Parliament and make legislation for the sake of making legislation. We do it because we want things to change.
Absolutely. And how important is male allyship? Can I ask that one again? Yeah. And how important is male allyship to women progressing in politics?
I think some of the biggest feminists in Parliament are actually men, and determined to make sure that we continue to make progress. And I will always point, and I know I've already said Greg Clark with his private members bill, but actually across government and across all of the parties, you will find some brilliant men who will stand up and champion the issues that we all care about, and do so from a perspective of 51% of the population are women. It's absolutely crucial that we get things right for them, whether it's on flexible working, whether it's around our campaign that people like Carolyn Harris and I have run on making sure that menopausal women have access to HRT, that we understand the importance of flexible working. You know, there's a whole range of issues that are gendered in nature, but where I've seen men really prepared to join in, and in some instances even take the lead.
So 50/50 Parliament are running the campaign Ask Her to Stand. We're calling on women and men, talking about the allyship. We want everyone to look at the women in their networks and their community and ask them to sign up to stand via the 50/50 Parliament website. What else can we be doing to create proper representation and real gender parity in Parliament and the elected bodies across the UK?
I think it's incumbent upon all of the political parties to have a really proactive campaign about finding great women and then asking them. And that's why I think the Ask Her to Stand campaign is so important, because many, many women, it's never even crossed their mind. And so you have to plant the seed. It's not good enough to plant the seed though, is it? You have to water the soil. You have to make sure that that inspiration grows. And look, it's tough. And I never shy away from saying that. A life in politics can be really difficult. It's also really rewarding. So we have to make sure that we don't lose people on the way there, that actually they're given the mentoring, they're given the training, the support, and just the sheer encouragement. And that parties are brave enough to look at their own selection processes and recognise when women, for whatever reason, are not getting through and say, do we need to tweak this? Do we need to be brave enough to change? And that's my message to absolutely every political party. Look at the obstacles and work out if those obstacles are fair for male and female candidates. And if there is an imbalance, and there is, then recognise that you might need to make it more possible for women to succeed. So whether that's about locality, whether it's about experience, whether it's about those first tentative steps, sometimes women will find it harder. Sometimes women will have caring responsibilities that make it harder for them to travel around the country for selection processes, make it harder for them to think about standing for council when all the meetings are in the evening, or when all the meetings start at school picking up time. These are the sort of barriers that women are facing, and we have to just be a bit imaginative how with a bit of flexibility you can make it much more feasible for women to look at the process and go, do you know what, I can do that.
Well, I'm really hoping that 50/50 Parliament is going to be part of that journey. We've got, us and other organisations have got a really friendly support network to help women as they start on their path to their political career. And you mentioned selections as well, so that's something that we're having a look at. We're really hopeful that we're going to see an uptick, and we're really hoping that the Ask Her to Stand campaign and the Sign Up to Stand campaign are going to see more women coming through, but importantly that they are then selected. So it's really good that you brought that up. And then finally, what I'd like to ask, if there's a woman at home today who is thinking about signing up to stand, what could you say that would inspire her to go through to 50/50 Parliament's website and click that Sign Up to Stand button?
So I always tell people this, it is absolutely the best job in the world. It's really interesting, you can make a real difference. The best bit, from my perspective, is always being able to help individual constituents. It's never about, we've put this piece of legislation through on, I don't know, Brexit or the health service or education. Actually, the place you will see a real difference is in that day-to-day interaction with your constituents. When they come to you with a problem, they only ever come to you with a problem when they've got to the end of their tether of trying to deal with it. It seems completely intractable, and sometimes we can just solve it for them. And that's the thing that I think is, particularly for me, makes a huge difference. When you've had a really tough day, when it's been grim in the chamber, when your diary has gone badly wrong and you're late for everything, you'll suddenly look down at your phone and you'll get an email from a constituent that just says, thank you for helping me with whatever the issue is. You made a difference. That makes it worthwhile.
Absolutely. Very rewarding, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time today and supporting our Ask Her to Stand campaign. Thank you, Caroline Nokes.
No problem at all. I've loved doing it.